Amidst the ongoing conflict between India and Pakistan, yesterday there was a flood of misinformation spread by Godi media. Today we will be discussing this with Ayush and Shoaib. Welcome, Ayush and Shoaib. So, Ayush, you were following this very closely yesterday. Could you tell us what transpired?
After we had a blackout in Jammu and videos started coming in where people shot clips of these red lights, apparently drones in the night sky, you had a lot of channels making very big claims, but not giving any sort of attribution or any details. And we can divide it into five big claims. The first was that there was a coup in Pakistan, and these were all both Hindi and English news channels. We also had claims that the Indian Navy had used the aircraft carrier INS Vikrant to attack the Karachi port. That was the second one. The third one was that we had attacked Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, and one that where the army had to intervene to debunk the claim was that there were suicide attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, which were reported again by one major Hindi news channel and an English news channel. And I think there was
So the army had to come out and actually rebut a media report.
their army sources, and they had to tell ANI.
So, were any of these claims backed by any sources, or were they just.
Till this point, I think 20 hours later, we can still say most of these information that they report is unverified. The Indian Army has not commented on any of them. But we can also see the newspapers today. If you open them up, you would not find any of these claims reported. And that's because the journalists, beat journalists who actually talk to their sources, have not been able to verify, corroborate any of this information.
So, Shoaib, why do you think there has been this flood of disinformation being spread by Godi media? What's the reason behind this?
I think, Kritika, there are I don't know, two or three main reasons. One is, it's just fog of war. Like, there is truly a lot of chaos and confusion that's going around. We don't know what's happening. India and Pakistan are not, I don't know, technically at war. I don't know what the threshold is, but this is a sort of conflict that India and Pakistan at least have not seen since 71. Um, so there is chaos, there is confusion, there is a lot of pressure on journalists to produce quote unquote breaking news, right? And it seems that in some of this pressure and some of this fog of war, unfortunately, some of the journalists, it seems like they're making stuff up. So which is not great. Which is not great for journalism as a whole. The fact that Indians are seeing stuff on their TV channels, which is just a figment of someone's fertile imagination. Number one, so it's fog of war. Number two, there is some politics kind of behind this, like this immense sort of war frenzy, this war hysteria that is being whipped up. Maybe does help the ruling party right now, right? Questions aren't asked, relevant questions aren't asked, and the Indian public is just being put on this sort of hamster wheel of just chasing after this incredible, sensationalist and often unverified news that's happening. So that's number two, and number three, this isn't new, right? India's media environment, there's been a lot of commentary on it. It's just terrible right now. You've had, I think, Mr. Ravish Kumar coined the term Godi media, or lapdog media in English. So our media, large parts of our media are just not doing the job that the media is supposed to do, which is report facts and ask questions. It is just sensationalist. I mean, this is obviously maybe the peak, but we've had so many other instances of this sort of madness. We had it for the Ria Chakraborty case, for example, just to bring one example up, where this, all sorts of crazy things were said about this young woman. She's now been, there are no charges against her. So it was all lies, and nobody comes up. One thing that I would want to add to Ayush's thing, one really insane, crazy piece of news that was spread is there was a person killed in Poonch yesterday. And a media channel ran his face and his name as portraying him as a Pakistani terrorist.
Yeah.
So the Pooch authorities have actually refuted that news, and I think till at least a couple of hours back, forget about an apology. The media house had not even retracted the news; it was still online. So this is the sort of almost crazy, frenetic sort of media environment that you're
Yeah.
living in, right, Ayush?
Yeah, and what makes it very stark is that there are independent news websites who have been blocked in the last couple of days. There is a lot of panic about, especially after last night, among viewers, but where do we find credible news? And one can say that you can go to independent news websites, but if the government starts blocking them, then where does one access reliable information about this chaotic state of affairs? So that is, and as you know, there are laws that are in place to control television media. It's regulated very tightly in India, but we have seen no instance of the government using any of these. There's a program code on the Cable TV Networks Act 1995, which completely prohibits this sort of reporting on TV, but it's not been kicked in at any point in the last 24 hours.
I think that's a very good point. So, the regulatory framework in India is extremely state heavy. The state decides when a TV channel is on air and when it is not, and these obviously become very heightened when it's in times of national security, right? So this is the law that Ayush mentioned. We have not seen that law being used at all. All the government of India has done is issue advisories, right? These toothless advisories, which are just being ignored completely. Like it is just this wholesale ignoring of these advisories that these channels are doing, and that's when you got to question like what is the reason for the government to do this? Because this is we know that there is just crazy misinformation being spread. The government has the powers to control it. The government is using its powers to control independent media. It is banning them. It is clamping down on them. It is, as of this morning, we have news that the Wire's website has been blocked. We don't know the reasons for it right now, but the Wire's website has been blocked, which is one of India's largest independent media organizations. That is blocked. We've had a number of uh, Twitter accounts, X accounts of I think Maktoob
Yeah.
is blocked, right?
Yeah.
We are having so we can see that not only does theoretically the government have this power, but at this moment it seems to be using it, but in ways that are completely arbitrary, right? Like they're blocking. Why the Wire website is blocked, we don't know. We don't know the reasons for these for independent media to be blocked, but the we're seeing misinformation, disinformation, at this tsunami of fake news being spread by large media houses.
Right.
And at that moment, all the government comes in and just says, small bit of advice, don't do this.
Right.
And it just goes off from there, right? It doesn't actually use the power of the law, right? Ayush?
Right. Yeah. In fact, the television news channels, they form their own unions or associations, and India has two, the NBF and the NBA. And even these associations have put out advisories to their own channels saying you should exercise editorial restraint. That was the word in one of their advisories. So their own associations have asked for caution when it comes to reporting at a time like this, which is not being followed.
Yeah.
And yesterday, what happened was, so you followed this very closely. So yesterday, for example, there was news that, just to take one example, again unverified, that a Pakistani pilot has been captured. Many people tweeted it out. What were their sources? Did they ever mention their sources?
No, and not even the sources. I mean, when it comes to reporting, we are told we have to report what, why, where, and how. They couldn't even tell us where was this pilot shot down. I mean, the news that it was apparently in Jaisalmer came much later, but by whom and where and at what time. And I mean, this morning there has been, of course, no follow up on it. But what happened to that piece of news which you just showed last night? And that means that even within these organizations, there is minimum accountability for the claims they have put out on screens.
And when they put out fake news, there is no sense of being sorry also.
Yeah.
Right? Like they just brazen
Yeah.
it out. So for example, all the fake news that was put out yesterday, all the misinformation, disinformation yesterday, has there been any retraction, or even like have even like people deleted their tweets?
There is one journalist, Bhupendra Chaube, He had tweeted that there was a coup in Pakistan, that the general had been
Hmm.
removed by one of his colleagues. He deleted that tweet. But a couple of other journalists who reported the capture of the Pakistani pilot and the shooting down of the Pakistani jet, those tweets are still there, and there have been no details on it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's so bad that I wanted to read out a tweet. There's a satirist called Rafal Gandhi, and he's tweeted out saying, "Big update: ceasefire to continue in Noida Film City till 5 p.m. Studio Battalion is taking rest after yesterday's heavy duty performance." So I mean, there's this incredible thing happening where India is fighting a real war against terror. India is fighting a real war against Pakistan. There is conflict happening, and you would think that the media would be responsible and do its job at this time, which is what you need to do. Which it is clearly not.
Do you think all this, the sort of reporting we saw on TV news last night, can it impact somehow the tensions between the two countries and how this might unfold in the coming days?
So that's a great question. So number one, I think, like before we get to the tensions between the two countries, one thing that I would like to flag is personally, I think, and we all must have seen it. Yesterday, we were worried. Like, for example, all three of us live in Delhi. There was some worry. In fact, in my apartment complex, there was talk of building a base, like having a basement shelter. We have a basement where we can move into it. There was talk on the RWA group. So usually there's lots of fighting going on, but yesterday was like a serious discussion on that. So that panic is going on, and in cities like Chandigarh and the sort of northern areas which border Pakistan, this sort of thing is spreading an immense amount of panic. So that's number one, and that by itself is huge because I mean people turn to the media to not panic, right?
Yeah.
We say that don't spread fake news, verify the news, and when I was a kid, you say you read the newspaper to become smarter, etc. I think now if you watch TVs, you'll become dumber, right? So the whole thing has been turned on its head. So that's number one. Number two, I think as you pointed out, there are strategic consequences. Now, for example, this sort of the things are bad by itself between India and Pakistan without any embellishment, right? We've had the terror attack in Pahalgam. We've had India's Operation Sindoor after that. We've had Pakistan's drones come in last night. So things are very bad. Now, if you're going to make it worse, आप आग में घी डालने वाले और बना के अपने you're sitting in your studios and you're just making stuff up. That is going to heighten tensions, and that's going to go around the populace. And both states, especially India because it's a democracy, and also to some extent Pakistan, they do respond to public pressure, right? So, if, for example, Indians feel a certain way, then the state will respond. Now, even if that feeling is not based on fact, that's kind of irrelevant beyond a point, right? So, if you're keeping on spreading this misinformation, for example, so if, for example, if one country spreads a lot of misinformation, the other countries got whacked today. So the other country will then maybe feel the need to respond in some ways, right? So right now, what we want to do is de-escalation. I think both India and Pakistan have said that the situation needs to be de-escalated. But how do you de-escalate when you have this extreme warmongering based on disinformation and misinformation, based on lies, basically? So I think that's, this is not this is a moral wrong in itself, but this has security implications, this has strategic implications. And these are all big words, but these have implications for lives of people, right? We're seeing almost 20 people have been killed in Pooch by Pakistani firing. So yeah, what do you think, Ayush?
I think a couple of things that were on TV last night, talking about security implications. The scary things were reports of the INS Vikrant attack on the Karachi port. Um, you know, Pakistan has one very major strategic point on its coast, and that is the port in Karachi. And Karachi itself is a major city. And for us to report that that port was attacked, some local news channels also ran with clips from strikes in other parts of the world 10, 20 years ago. So old videos were recycled to show that this is Indian military operation in Karachi. That could have very serious consequences. And till this point, again, there has been no confirmation from the Indian government on this, no comment on this. The second thing was that the India had struck Islamabad, the Pakistani capital, and I mean, if you strike another country's capital, that could just open up an array of new options which can take this in way more serious, riskier direction. We had to call up people in Pakistan, journalists in Pakistan we knew, to ask whether something like this had happened. And they said that no, nothing had happened. From everywhere, we collectively heard that nothing has happened. What was being shown on TV did not happen. So,
And there's such a basic journalistic practice is to you reach out, you triangulate your sources, right?
Yeah.
If you're getting, if source A is telling you something, you go to source B and you match it, and then that's when you run it.
Right.
But that's not being done, right? The other thing that I wanted to point out, is that I really think that the Indian government also needs to step up its communication game. We are in a really fast moving environment. We are in a really fast paced environment, and there is threat of war and hence loss of life, right? The stakes cannot be higher.
right.
India is the largest country in the world. We have millions of people, and Indians look to their government for correct information, right? Nobody puts on channels for correct information. I hope they don't. And at this moment, the Indian government is releasing information at a very slow pace, right? There is this trickle of information. It is releasing information uh, with maybe only security and strategic objectives, which is obviously very important. But it should also release now. Maybe it should also take into account public panic and public mood, right? If there is a lot of unverified information moving through society, then it is the job of the government of India to come down and say what is right and what is wrong.
So-
And the government of India has a PIB fact check unit, and they have a Twitter handle, and they are usually very active. But last night I've seen their fact checks, and they only fact checked the fidayeen suicide bombing attack after the army pointed it out. That was not true. But the rest of it, they were not fact checking any of the news channels. They were taking certain clips from certain towns and saying, okay, this clip is not from Jalandhar, this clip is not from Jammu, or it's not true that all airports across the country have been closed down. So you have a dedicated fact checking unit, people who are paid from taxpayers' money, who work around the clock, but there's not much to show for it, unfortunately.
Yeah. So this might be a little bit of a difficult question to answer at the moment, but for the viewers watching, what could they do in a situation like this where they are being flooded with misinformation and disinformation? Where can they get their information from?
I think unless the Indian government starts being more frequent with its update, that would be helpful. But if we are still going to be stuck with the same cycle, then just wait for official comments from the government, from the army, from the armed forces, or tune into more independent news websites. We have been reporting on this matter. We have not reported the way TV news channels have. We have been very restrained and only citing sources where we have official confirmation, not taking anonymous quotes from anyone. So Scroll is one example, and there are array of independent news websites who are doing similar work.
And I think for a good journalist, if you're unsure of news, you would rather not run it
Right.
rather than just
Yeah.
rush to break news. So, so there are, we can sort of blow on bugle. So there's Scroll, of course, but there are other independent media websites and sources where people do like check information. So that's what you could do, and you need to throw out your TV.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do.
So thank you, Shoaib, and thank you, Ayush, for joining us today. And thank you, viewers, for watching. That's all for today. Stay safe.